Hello and welcome to Kast. Today is August 17th, 2014, and this is where Kong has a bit of roundtable discussion talking about the games we at Kong are interested in. I'm your host, Kalis, and today we are focused on Heavy Gear Assault. Now this game is currently in alpha, but what we have seen has made us very excited for its potential. Today from Stompy Robot Productions, the makers of Heavy Gear Assault, we have producer Vince McMullin.
Hi everybody.
And Vice President John Nguyen.
Hey, how's it going?
They're with us today to answer a few questions and to talk about some exciting developments. And of course, we have our roundtable of misfits, which includes Molasses.
Hi.
Dashing.
Yo.
GF.
Hey.
Connor.
How's it going?
Brandy.
Hi there.
And finally, Jude.
Do I have to make another fucking intro?
No. All right, well, since we've been a while since we've had the last Concast with you guys, we'll do a little bit of getting to know you. First of all, Vince, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your relation to Heavy Gear and what you do for it?
Alright, so basically I'm the producer on Heavy Gear Assault, so most of the mech community would know me for my role with MechTech.net. I was the founder of MechTech. And it's always been a dream of mine to create a AAA mech video game. And so back a few years ago, MechTech decided to create a studio here in St. John, New Brunswick. And as part of that process, we were looking at different properties, and we were taking a very strong look at the Heavy Gear property because there hadn't been a game in well over a decade. And it's a property that really needed a next-gen game as far as I was concerned. So basically, to cut to the short of the story, being a big fan of Heavy Gear and a huge fan of what Activision did with the franchise back in the 90s, we went out and met with the owners of Heavy Gear DreamPod 9. DreamPod 9 is a hobby game shop in Montreal, Quebec, and we pitched them to pick up the license for Heavy Gear to do a PC rendition of Heavy Gear, and so here we are.
All right, awesome. All right, John, can you give us some background in your relationship to Heavy Gear and what you do at StompyBot?
So, my background, as Vince pointed out, is I came from DreamPod 9, and I worked on the IP for over 5 years. And I was really excited when MechTech approached us and actually decided to pick us up for a video game, because it was quite long overdue, in fact. Heavy Gear 2 was a great success. I remember still playing it way back when high school, and I too thought it was time for another video game. And so in close collaboration with StompyBot, the collaboration got a little closer, and I ended up working for them and directing how the vision of how the IP would meet next-gen tech.
I didn't actually fully answer the question there. If I can just jump in and add to what John was saying. As part of that process with DreamPod 9, we actually decided that one of our ambitions was to actually create a publishing company as well. We saw MechTech Studios as being a developer, but not necessarily being a games publisher. And so that actually is how StompyBot came to be. We decided that StompyBot would be the umbrella, if you will, for MechTech and potentially other independent developers similar to MechTech that may be interested in getting, robot games, space games, and other various types of IPs out there. We realized that we were developing a great deal of relationships with industry, and we were able to provide expertise and access to information that independents may not necessarily be able to get access to right away. This industry is a little bit of a hard nut to crack sometimes, and we through MechTech have spent about 12, 13 years working on figuring out how the industry works And by that process, we figured that we would actually push some of that information into a new company and open it up and allow to be able to work with other companies as well.
That's fantastic. And we here at Kong, we love our Stompy robots. And your dedication to the cause of robots and destroying other robots is really great. So,
it's great to hear.
According to your latest producer update, you talked a bit about your modular plate system. Would you like to explain it in detail and what it's about?
Oh, absolutely. So for those of you listening in, you may not know this or not, but we are doing regular weekly updates on our website, heavygear.com. You can go to the forums and actually find producer updates that I've been putting up, talking a little bit about the game and the types of things that I think mech fans and even general gamers may be interested in hearing about. And last week, I put up an update about our new modular plate system. And so, over the years, I've often wondered why mech games never had a design which was more modular. Because most mechs, if you're familiar with Heavy Gear, basically most of the chassis are skeletons which contain segments of armor that are pieced together that protect the internal systems and sensors and various weapon systems, and of course the pilot. Most mech franchises that I know of are actually rather similar to this type of philosophy as well. And so, as a kid, we've all played with Legos, and I certainly played with Lego blocks, and so I use this analogy quite often when explaining to people how the modular system works in Heavy Gear Assault. What we did was we took these armor pieces and we actually consider each piece of armor. And if you have a chance to look at some of the images we've recently posted, you can see that, for instance, the forearm is actually broken down into 3 major segments, and then, of course, the hand, which is many smaller segments. And those segments are all essentially, Legos in a Lego kit, in my mind. And what we do is we snap these meshes together that actually create the full arm, as well as the hand with all of the actuators and everything that you would expect.
So you're detailing out the parts of the hand?
Oh yeah, so we actually have detailed out the parts of the hand. We have the ability right now to actually blow a finger off. So you could potentially blow the trigger finger off of one of the hands on a gear with the current version of our alpha, and that's only going to get better. One of the things that we're working on right now with the alpha is actually developing the internal damage system, and so the internal damage system is essentially the ability to damage all of the internals that the skeleton is. So the actuators, for instance. So if you damage an actuator, you might not necessarily even blow the hand off, but if you damage the actuators in the wrist, for instance, the hand will go limp and you won't be able to use the hand at all. It's just, it's a dead limb.
So you're tracking the damage of the actuators and all the servos and such inside the hand itself?
We are tracking all of the sensor information and the list has been growing actually over time. Originally, the list was quite small in terms of what we wanted to track internally. It's funny. Most mech games in the past have actually just cheated, and they use some kind of randomized function or something where you have this external damage that you hit the armor and then you get this critical failure or something like that. That's just a total random, draw in terms of what the CPU
You're actually
decides.
tracking the actual error that's
right.
happening.
No, that's right.
So
We're actually tracking
how
where the projectile, when it actually hits that sensor, we know the projectile passed through the armor, or it may have fragmented and it may have hit multiple pieces, and we actually know what pieces in terms of the skeleton was hit.
That's pretty insane.
It is it's an insane data matrix. It is absolutely insane, but we are we are really, really, really proud of this system, because this system allows us to be able to, pull any piece of this machine in terms of engineering. And Heavy Gear is such a great property to use to do something like this, because with Heavy Gear, essentially, all the gear design was designed in such a way that it was planned this way. It was super engineered in a way that it's very similar to what's a good way to describe this? It was designed in such a way that it would make sense for it to be mobile. It's an infantry fighting vehicle essentially, right? So it's not necessarily. I don't want to draw comparisons to the battle suit or the elemental, but for the BattleTech crowd, that's essentially what a gear really is, right? The gear is very modular. People don't have an appreciation for the fact that the limbs move. It's not like the guns are just stuck out. That's all you can do with them. They have hands that can grab, they can pick things up, they can throw things. They can go ahead and grab onto, perhaps you have some sort of mobile armored vehicle that's going by. They can jump and grab onto that. There's very big mechs in this universe. They're called Striders. There's the potential they may be able to actually hitch a ride into a battle using those. They really act like infantry most of the time, and this is something that's really important. Is you have to have the ability to demonstrate why. This system that we've designed allows us to be able to demonstrate that this is a very it's a very small mech, in comparison to the 40 or 50 ton Striders. But it's also very mobile, and that's actually what we're focusing on for the next module that we're going to be releasing to our alpha team, and within the next 3 to 4 months. In this module, we will be demonstrating a little bit more of the modular aspect with our weapons designs, with these actuating systems, the ability to be able to pick things up and throw them. The ability to be able to take, be able to take damage, fall down perhaps, to one knee, and continue to keep fighting on one knee and things like that you can't do in any other mech game right now, to my knowledge. So we're really, really looking forward to, to being able to demonstrate this to people.
That's pretty amazing. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, but that sounds more complicated than the base role-playing game, correct? As far as the damage modeling and a rule set?
Yeah, it's compared to the original RPG rules of the 2nd edition, 3rd edition, we're going way more into detail than was ever proposed ever in any Heavy Gear franchise product. We're going to go into the level to bring this to a new level of realism. And when we're already talking about tracking individual fingers on a hand, more practical applications would be to use a variety of weapons that are out there. Like Vince mentioned, you can say you have a jam in one of your cannons, you just either clear the jam, drop it all together, pick something else up, freaking run at your opponent with a katana, or even more practically do a bunch of taunts with your fingers and do various obscene gestures at your opponents if you so elect.
I got a list here if you want to hear it. This list is the Jaeger internal structure systems. Yeah, so these are 28. I might actually bore the hell out of a few of your listeners, but I'll try to run through the most interesting ones I've got listed here. Real
quick, we have a question from Jude, if you don't mind.
Yeah, okay, so does that mean you'll be unable to fire your weapon if the knuckle in your finger is damaged?
I don't think we're going to go into that kind of... If your knuckle's damaged, it won't be necessarily preventing you from firing it. Like that. There's a certain line that you'll cross in terms of it being fun and annoying. And we want to make sure that we continue to make this as fun as possible. So, our alpha team will actually tell us whether this has gone, beyond being fun And for me, the fun factor is first and foremost. The most important part of this is it has to be fun to play. So, if you lose the skin off your knuckle, I'm not going to stop you from firing the weapon, obviously. But anyway, this list here, I just want to quickly run through it. So most of this was actually comprised from the technical manual for the second edition of the technical manual for heavy gear. So there was a lot of foresight early on in the development of heavy gear in terms of how these things would be designed, and we find it's actually a great list to actually build from. So of course we're looking at generators and pumps. We're going to have a head mainframe. There's a sensor plate, a rocket cluster. You have modular hardpoints, already mentioned, arm elevation rotors, low arm rotation assembly, elbow mechanism housing, forearm shock absorbers, digit rotors. Let's see, where's some more interesting ones. Booster pumps and foot structure members, supplemental and balance mechanisms, short range forward scanners, pressure fluid tanks, SMS wheel assembly. The SMS is the secondary movement system. So if you're lucky enough to hit a guy in his foot and you manage to damage the wheel assembly, then he won't be able to actually skate in the game, which I think is actually a pretty good tactic to use, especially if you're out in the Badlands. Shock absorbing foot plates. There's short range ground scanners, knee block structure frames, forward hip armor frames, lower forward scanners, the cockpit foot plate. If you damage that, well, the pilot better move quickly and get out of that thing. Torso mainframe, torso suspension actuators, upper hatch assembly. These are just some of the internal structures that we're looking at to actually start tracking and damaging based upon the players' reactions to other players. So I think it's actually the list is going to grow as the alpha team continues to play, and we start to generate even more ideas in terms of what we'll be damaging on the gears and allowing players to be pretty tactical in terms of how they decide to play this game. The internal damage
real quick,
system.
We have Molasses has a question.
Yeah, sure.
It's like all those parts that you listed. When those specifically get damaged, will that appear on your screen? Will it be like your flux capacitor has been breached?
Yeah, I was curious about that too. How could you possibly communicate all that to the player? Like your lower left ring finger is broken. I mean,
well, if there's like a text box inside, that'd be all right.
Well, our heads-up display design is actually going through a complete overhaul right now from the original heads-up display. So there's a technical conversation that I suppose we could have real quick. Because we're using Unreal Engine 4, one of the challenges with Unreal Engine 4 early on was the lack of a user interface system that was suitable for our game. And one of the things that we decided to do was actually create our own 3D HUD. And not to get into the technical specifics of what that means too much, but basically we designed the HUD in-game using in-game static geometry, and we display that to the user. And what we find is it's actually rather challenging to update. It's kind of a pain to modify, and it's not really serving the purpose that we wanted. So we've decided to give it an overhaul in the next module, and we have a couple of very interesting UI designs based upon the early 3D HUD that we come up with, and we're going to stick to the 3D HUD design. But we're now going to also be using some new technology that's recently come out in the last couple of months for Unreal Engine 4 that we quite like. And we're using it for all of our other user interface systems. It's called Coherent. And Coherent has enabled us to be able to actually draw HTML design UI on geometry in the game, and we can move it around and actually we're looking at the ability to provide access to the user, so the user could actually come in and decide the types of information that they may want to have access to, and allowing them to be able to customize their UI, even changing the colors of things if they want to. We're able to do that because we're using a very modern UI technology now to build our game. So with that said, to get at your original question with how much information is too much information, we actually want to keep the HUD quite simple. Mostly text notifications is what we're looking at the moment. We do have a 3D version of your gear that we're going to be displaying to the user in the future update of the UI, where we'll show you, using a color coding system, that something has happened to that particular portion of the gear. We'll also provide a text update. So that's where we're going with it. We're trying to very much so keep it simple and allow the player to decide just how much information they want on their screen, just enforce the fact that the basics always need to be there, of course. So after that, if you want a more advanced output, that's that we're hoping to leave
so
the
you'll
player.
have like verbose or terse mode or something along those lines?
Yeah, that's exactly where we're going to go with that. So players can decide, how much information is too much for them.
Everyone uses verbose because then I get paid more.
Well, that's an absolutely frightening amount of detail. But exciting nonetheless. One question is, from all the detail you're going into, are you like inventing concepts and technology at this point, or?
Absolutely, yes. So there's certain technologies, and if we're talking in lore technologies, we're actually sticking very close to the IP at this point. There's a few things that, of course, have never been taken into account before, because with the previous games by Activision, of course, and the work that was done by DreamPod 9 in the 90s, we've gone so much further with 3D technologies, with things like PhysX, and so we're able to actually do much more in terms of tracking, these types of data. However, with that said, we have invented, this system from scratch, and it's actually quite innovative as far as I'm concerned. This entire, from the modular plate system to the internal damage system, we've had to re-engineer bits of Unreal Engine 4 to allow us to be able to do these types of things. The engine wasn't built with necessarily the intention of actually being able to track this type of information, or even giving the developer access to this information has been, a serious challenge. So we're quite happy with our development team in terms of where we've come with this. We stayed underground for about 2 or 3 months, just working on the basic blueprint of this system, and it was quite a technical achievement when we finally got it working. And I know that there's other developers out there using Unreal Engine 4 that have even expressed interest in terms of potentially having access to this technology for their games.
Oh wow! So maybe you could license that information away to others. That'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, is there anything more you would like to talk about the modular plate system, or would you like to go on to the question?
I think what I would like to end with, in terms of talking about the modular plate system, for the average gamer that, of course, is looking at his wallet and saying, okay, well, what does this really mean to me in terms of going forward? For us, we can actually use this Lego kit as it grows to be able to produce gears faster and more efficiently, because we can take armor plates. One of the great things about the heavy gear property as well, with this system is that many gears share very similar designs. In fact, all gears are initially based on the Hunter design, which was the original heavy gear, if you will. And so what we're planning on doing is actually using these kits as we model more and more gears. We're actually creating an archive of armor plates that can then be used to create gears from scratch faster and faster and faster until we have all of the gears in the heavy gear property created. And I think that's going to be quite an achievement. And the only way we're able to do this as a small team without having 1,000 modelers working feverishly to get this done in a few years is by using a system like this. And so it allows us to be able to get it done at a fairly affordable, which is actually going to reflect as well in terms of the final cost of the product for consumers.
So you're not looking to just build each gear out individually with all hand painstaking detail and such. You're actually looking more just build all the parts and then build everything you need out of the parts.
But you build all the parts, absolutely. And then you also have you build all the parts, but you also have all the stats, and then with that, tweaking and building it together in such a modular system, we would be able to build all the gears that are in lore and also have a cross-section of performance that's consistent with the lore.
That'll probably save you some time and money. And of course, you're staying true to the lore, which is always good.
And a bonus also for our player base is this not only will allow us to produce gears at a faster and cheaper rate, it would also allow our players to customize ad nauseum to their liking their own setups.
That's a good point.
That's a great point. Great point, John. The average MechWarrior fan has asked me, what's so cool about Heavy Gear Assault? And basically, I tell them, look, we've taken what we really like about MechWarrior, we've taken what we really like about games like Forza, we smash them together, and we stay true to the lore in Heavy Gear, and that is essentially what Heavy Gear Assault is. All of this that we just talked about, it also enables us to allow players to come in and fully customize their gears. And things like changing of different headpieces, different shoulder plates, making your gear look different is something that we fully believe is something we can realize and allow players to be able to do such a thing. In fact, proof of concept for this system is actually the Warrior that right now is in our alpha. The Warrior is essentially a hunter with a warrior head with some stats tweaked that is fully database driven. So all the gears are built from a database that sits in the back end, and they get built at runtime. And so none of this information necessarily has to be static. Like, we can allow players to be able to change things with their characters and not have to worry about always looking the same. This isn't a war game. This is more of an esports game. So we want to be able to focus on allowing the players to customize their gears to make themselves stand out and be cool and look different. And it doesn't just mean changing, the color of your gear and changing decals, but actually allowing you to be able to change out pieces of geometry as well.
What are you going to do against all those people that are just going to use a little piece from everythh and they'll have these strange deformed gears?
Well, I'm of the opinion, actually, that, the Minecraft mindset has been proven to be quite successful. And, players, in our alpha team and our beta team later on, indicate that this is something that, they want to do. I'm of the opinion, and I'll let others on our team, of course, stop me from letting this happen. If you want to take just the bare skeleton frame out on the battlefield with no armor on it whatsoever, go for it. You're going to quickly find out why these designs exist the way they do, and why it's a bad idea to do such.
Oh wow! That's just right out there with just a skeleton.
It looked like the mech from the Matrix.
That's assuming that you actually live long enough to realize what's going on.
All right, well, let's move on to the questions, if you don't mind. And first of all, first question is from our very own Jeff. Do you want to ask your question, Jeff?
Sure. Actually, I have two questions now. So, Vince, you've been saying you used to love Legos as a kid. What was your favorite set? And second question, well, I'm pretty late to the party. I don't know much about the whole Heavy Gear franchise. Can you explain what Heavy Gear Assault is going to be about, other than being a robot game? And what can you do to convince me and other newbies to jump in as soon as the open beta is up?
Okay, so my favorite Lego kit was probably the Lego Space Kits. So I was a big fan of the Lego Space Kits.
Right on. Good man.
Yeah, I had forced my parents to probably buy way too many space kits.
You got the Space Police and the Blacktron kits.
I had
Hell yeah.
all the Blacktron. I had the what were they, the Frozen space kit, the Frozen guys. They had the little rocket launchers.
And the white beards.
The white beards. Yeah, I had them all. Like I loved Legos. In fact, I even won a Lego award, the Canadian Lego Award. I built a spaceship and sent the specifications in the Lego and won that award. That was like a long time ago. Yeah, huge Lego fan, and it's a great way to explain to the average mech nerd how we're designing this system for Heavy Gear. So what was the other question?
Well, I just wanted to get basic introduction information on the franchise, what the game's going to be about. I don't know much about the whole franchise, so just at a basic level.
Okay, so I guess I'll take that, seeing that I'm the more the IP guru. So basically, Heavy Gear Arena, we're going to start out. It's a totally different franchise where we're on a planet called Terra Nova. And on this planet, it's been colonized by humans for centuries. And it's part of a bigger picture later on. But we start somewhere, and that somewhere is the most popular sport on Terra Nova, which is gear dueling. Basically, gears are the backbone of Terra Nova's militaries. There are several countries on Terra Nova, and they all use gears as the mainstay of their military forces. But that being said, civilians, corporations, as well as militaries field duelists. And dueling is a tradition on this planet to settle differences and also to show off and being part of this massive global sporting event. And so, as a participant in this sport, the player will be able to customize their gears, hire support staff, such as technicians and promoters and such like that, and enter the arena to battle each other and to form clans and dueling leagues, and basically compete on a global scale with other players in leagues, tournaments, and later on into actual championships, regional and global. And from there, who knows, we're going to branch out to touch other parts of the lore, because it's a huge history steeped full of warfare, strife, and conflict. And so maybe later on we might actually expand outside of sports, but that's where we're going to start for now.
Looks good, thanks.
All right. For our next question, it's from our own Salient. For someone who has been burned by other robot games, how are you going to do things differently?
Oh, this is an easy one. Listen to your community. First and foremost, my grassroots here is of course from the mech tech community, and with mech tech, we always try to listen to our community. We're community oriented. We're a mod team. I got started back playing mech games when I was just a kid, and for me, my experience was was always a very fun-filled adventure playing mech games. I started out playing MechWarrior 2, then I jumped to MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, which is my favorite mech game of all time. Jumped to the Internet Gaming Zone from there and played MechWarrior 3 to death. Then MechWarrior 4 came along, and during this little mech escapade, playing the MechWarrior franchise, I decided that after spending years running a large online clan and several, helping manage and also doing the technical back end for several pretty big leagues at the time. I decided to create MechTech with, of course, my co-founder James Taylor. And when we created MechTech, it happened by accident. There was no big sort of grand vision or anything like that. But after we created it, we sort of became a voice for the community and the MechWarrior developers at the time, and even other mech genre, other mech developers, such as Dynamic Sierra, with the Tribes franchise. We communicated, of course, with Activision up until they walked away from Heavy Gear. And we found we were able to actually be that voice. Like, developers would ask us, what we thought of what the community, was thinking about what they were proposing and what the bits of information were being released. Back then, things like social networks didn't really exist. We were the social network for the mech community for a large part. And so now with our game, one of the things I want to make very known publicly is that we really value what the gamers think of our product. We really value what people are saying, taking all their opinions and it doesn't just mean bugs and game crashes and, just stupid technical things, but, like I said before, is it fun to play? Does it have the fun factor? Do people feel like they're getting good value for their money? Those types of things, I think, other developers, they haven't really paid attention to as much as they should have. And it's obviously caused a ripple effect across, the entire, genre, and I'll go so far as to say even the industry, in terms of what people think about free to play and the various business models behind mech games right now. We actually did a survey with I think 24 of our biggest backers on Heavy Gear, and that survey basically came back with every single one of those backers. They felt like that they were taken advantage of in other mech games, and that actually spoke to me quite a bit. After speaking with a few of those individuals personally, I understand where they're coming from. They feel like their voices just haven't been heard, and that's where we want to make things different. We want gamers to know that we're listening. We want our backers, and our consumers and our players to know that we're listening, and their voice will echo through the halls of Stompy Bot Productions and MechTech Studios.
That's an admirable answer. We here at Kong always appreciate being listened to, and that is the kind of thing we like hearing. Anyway, moving on. We had a question from Kast. When in the game, what kind of feeling would you like to convey to the player? Would you like to have a more serious mood or something more action movie-esque, or just more towards the silly side?
When in the game, we want play. This is a serious esports style game. There's a ladder that's running all the time. It's always ticking. So if you want to be a part of that, you will have to be a part of that. And if you're not playing in the ladder and you decide to go off and play on a private server, you're more than welcome to do that. You can get your buddies together and play on a private server. We actually even will be providing a dedicated server to the players. So it's a fairly serious. I use Counter-Strike or Unreal Tournament, those types of games, that type of feeling. You want to get the kills in, you want to be able to climb the ladder, you want to be able to complete the objectives. It's not going to have that war game type feeling to it, though. It's definitely going to have a bit more of the Unreal Tournament type feeling to it when playing. And combined with the pace and the feeling of the current game modes game types that are in the game, you can see why I'm saying that. However, as we continue to keep expanding, and I guess this is an interesting question to segue into talking a little bit about the open worlds, and we've been hearing a lot from various various social networks and on our forums, from players that are a bit concerned when they find out the Heavy Gear Assault is using Heavy Gear Arena as sort of the backdrop for the game. And I think it's important for me to point out that we're not just building Coliseum style levels. We're actually building very open world levels where arguably are as big as some of the open worlds that you would consider to be open world last generation. So, I take great exception to the fact that people think that it's just a Coliseum Arena game, because it really isn't. We are, of course, providing, some Arena-esque, kits to those worlds. So, things like flying drones, things like people in stands and stadium style of playing is definitely there. But these are open worlds. There are very interesting styles of gameplay available that are not the classic Coliseum style, free for all. So I just felt the need to point that out, because I know that could alter my my answer a little bit if you're thinking, just a very enclosed space arena style, that it's not going to be just like that.
All right. That's pretty good. We have Jude, I think a comment on your previous statement. Go ahead.
Yes. So Jeef's very first query brings up a very important question. Did you own a Car City carpet?
Way to go.
What? You want to repeat that one, Jude?
Did you own a Car City carpet?
I don't know about Vince, but I did, and I played Lego on it.
Okay. One of you is winning. I believe
I'm losing on that one, Jude.
You know those carpets with rolls on them?
Oh, that's actually that's interesting, because I just recently bought one of those for my daughter, who is now also
Best
getting
dad.
into the Legos.
Best
Apparently
dad
she's
right over
better
here.
than you.
My childhood was deprived, unfortunately. I don't remember owning a Car City carpet.
So I believe Jeef also added on to the end of his second question the first time he said it's something like, what is the draw for a new player? Like someone who has never heard of Heavy Gear, possibly even played a mech game before?
It's a fast action mech game. I mean, if you like playing games like Counter-Strike, Unreal Tournament, if you've never played a mech game before, then obviously I can't make comparison there. But if you like the feeling of your heart pounding out of your chest and screaming on the mic at some guy somewhere across the continent, well, this is the game.
You got that race feeling, you got that customization feeling, so that you're owning what you're building, and then you get to pit it against the very best that's out there. And so your heart is pounding, your adrenaline's going, you never know what's going to happen next. 1 minute you're leading, the next not so much. And so it's lots of action, lots of fast pace, and you get to test what you've built against other people.
Oh, that's enticing. You could have also just said rocket jousting and left it at that.
I could have also said rocket jousting, but maybe that's a game type later to come.
That.
And lastly, Vince, is that your squeaky chair, or is there an axe murderer rampaging through your sex dungeon over there?
Like a howler monkey or something.
Whoa, you guys can hear the chair, but you can't hear the band that's playing just across the street. That's that's kind of amazing. It's likely the chair, though. It would surprise me if there is an axe murderer in this building right now.
Well, you are in Canada, right?
I am, and we are big on our axe murderers here. Let me
Yes,
tell
we're
you.
well known for our axe murdering that goes on up here.
Except in Jude's area, it's chainsaws.
Yes, Vince lives over in, like, New Scotland or something, I don't know.
They don't have the chainsaw technology yet.
Nope, we only read about it.
All right, moving on. We have another question from Kast. Traditionally in piloted robot games, the damage that the robot takes can be seen on the outside of the mech. To what degree do you plan to have visual damage to the gears that other players can see? And I guess this ties in with your amazing damage modeling system. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, this one's actually quite simple. The gear is comprised of armor plates, and as you shoot these armor plates off, they will explode. You will see shattering of the plates, depending on what kind of projectile, what kind of weapon system you use to blow it off. It is weapon dependent. You can also see sparks, smoke, explosions. Essentially all the things you've come to love from blowing something up in a 3D game.
All right. Well, the skeleton, as you were talking, is that going to be bent, twisted, or anything along those lines? Any of that level of fidelity, or what are you aiming for?
We're aiming to have the skeleton be very much so destroyed as much as you can destroy the armor plates. So again, that sort of bent and twisted type of thing. We're also going to be blowing off limbs as well. One of the I'll throw this in there because I find this one to be fun. But one of the things our technical director Matthew Jones has been toying with putting into the game is actually allowing you to pick up the arm of an opponent and beat him with his own arm.
That was one of my favorite things to do in BattleTech. Jude.
Wasn't that my idea? Would the visual damage be partially based on the weapons that caused it?
Yes.
So if you get hit by like really weak weapons, then it just kind of scratches your paint off?
Absolutely. With the laser cannons, for instance, is right now it's fairly foobarred right now, but we're currently that will be the next thing that we address in the alpha is getting the laser cannon working the way we want it to work, and there will be etching. You will be able to see the etching on the paint on the gear before it blows the plate off.
I'm gonna need a change of pants by the time this Concast is over.
All right, then. Molasses, go ahead.
Will there be different types of damage to make? Like, say you shoot, with your laser, you shoot an armor plate head on, as opposed to like from an angle or maybe like a glancing shot. Will that affect damage at all?
Well, another one of our technical geniuses who actually he's actually a smart ass. He has a PhD and he worked for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory for years doing his postdoc. He's actually come up with a formula. It's a projectile distribution ballistics formula that we're looking at engineering into the game that is just that. So the angle of the angle in which the projectile hits or enters the armor plate will, of course, impact how the projectile damages that particular system or plate.
Insane.
You guys are off your rocker, but awesome. All right, so another question from you guys. To separate players of different skill levels, many multiplayer games use systems to keep players of different amounts of skill apart. How do you plan to do this in Heavy Gear, and to what degree?
I guess I'll jump in. But so in Heavy Gear, traditionally, we had a system called threat value in the tabletop and the RPG world. And threat value, on the one hand, is the calculation of how much your equipment is worth in terms of a threat. So basically, when you build your mech or your gear, all the components that you slap together are going to be calculated and tallied into a threat value. And so dependent on what kind of game type you go in, there'll be a budgeted threat value for your equipment to come in to. So say, I don't know, 5,000 threat value, arbitrary number like that. So your build has to come under 5,000 threat value. So that's in terms of equipment. But in terms of skills, your skills can be tracked. If you so desire, or want to be part of the official ladders and tournaments, so your performances will be tracked in the official forums, and from there, similarly skilled or statted players will be grouped together in the same ladder to compete. So not only we're going to be balancing equipment, but we're also going to be balancing players' skills, so that you always match with somebody that you can reasonably defeat, and from there, as you get progressively better, you're going to be moved to different ladders or moved to different skill levels and matched with accordingly.
Well, I have a burning question about this. How do you intend to balance a warrior's gear finger as opposed to a Kodiak's gear finger for the threat value? I mean, that might cause troubles.
Well, I guess the Kodiak's finger would poke you a little harder.
All right, Molasses, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. Another game did that gear-based ranking as well. Robocrap, and some people in here played that for a while. They did a similar thing, but a lot of people found ways around it by making like a very bare bones mech, but with like a top tier weapon, and that top tier weapon was able to generally one shot people. And so, what are you going to do in case of situations like that when people try to game the system?
That's inevitably going to happen in any game. So the idea is to keep it as close to lore as possible, because we have about 20 years worth of people trying to game Heavy Gear, the tabletop. So we try to keep it as consistent as possible, and certain gears can't take certain equipment. So say, I don't know, taking a low-class gear and putting a top-tier weapon on it may not necessarily work. We wanted to try to stay as consistent with the possible loadouts of the in-lore stuff.
Gotcha.
All right. We have another question from you, Kast. It's about the community. In what ways do you plan to engage the community with the development of your game? To what degree do you think you will let the community change the direction of your game's development? And for how long in the development cycle will you let ideas influence your decisions?
This is an exciting one.
I thought you might like it, because...
Yes, this is an exciting one. So again, we sort of reiterated on this, and I'm sure John is burning to also jump in on this too. But
Can I?
You'll have your chance. But I just want to say a quick few words. The community is the game. Without the community, we don't have a product. This is something, again, that I think some of the other mech games that are out there right now are really not paying attention to their community very well at all. And I played Titanfall, for instance, and I didn't find it to be very community engaging. I didn't really, honestly, I don't even know where their forums are. I've looked, and I found the community forums, and I found the Respawn forums. They don't seem to be all very active, or developers actually. I just don't know. They've got some sandbox to play in that I haven't found yet, maybe. But For me, one of the most important things is to actually listen to the community, and we actually have a product that Stompy Bot Productions has been developing now for a little while, as well as Heavy Gear, and it's something we've implemented in the Heavy Gear now, and this application we're developing it with the intentions, and our alpha team now has access to it as an in-game portal for users to be able to actually provide critical feedback to us as developers about the game. And it's just going to be a simple tab that you'll be able to click in the UI, go there, and actually provide feedback. And then you'll get immediate responses back from us as soon as we get those messages from you. And it allows us to be able to know that we're dealing with people that are actually playing the game versus just forum jockeys that have never even loaded up the executable before. And it allows us to be able to address real issues as well, like, if you're playing the game and you actually spot there's a seam or a flickering texture or something like that, you can, let us know, and that actually gets tracked as a bug or, an issue that you're having. But you can also just send us general feedback, and that will actually go into the queue, and the development team will get their hands on that information and respond back to the players. And we're actually looking to take this piece of technology and actually license it out to all the indies. We want everybody to understand what we're working towards here, because we've got more than a decade of experience working with the mech community on the MechWarrior 4 mech packs, and during that time, that experience, we've developed ideas about how best to deal with what can sometimes be an overwhelming amount of information, and cutting away the fat and actually getting at the heart of issues is, for most it's largely an art, where you have a really good community manager that sits on a forum and keeps track of this information and pushes it over to a development team. This takes a very skilled and sometimes lucky individual to actually figure it out. But at the same time, using forums and social networks to keep track of players' problems are, I think, rather inefficient. If you're in the game, you're immersed, and why do you have to jump out and go to a Facebook page to let the developer know you're having a problem? These are rather advanced pieces of technology that you have on your desktop loaded. Arguably the most advanced systems, next to the operating system at some points. We think, and I think, that this is something that we need to make we need to make accessible and easy to get information across, that gamers have comments and issues, that's essentially all I want to say about that. I know John wants to talk probably a little bit more about how we're going to engage the community, but that's more from a developer's perspective on my part.
Vince, you're talking way too much sense for a game developer. Like, seriously.
It's almost like he's telling the truth.
We're not game developers. We're gamers.
Preach on. All right, John, why don't you tell us your take on that?
Well, Vince started off earlier this evening by saying MechTech's roots, and pretty much saying that we were a mod group, and that is drilled into every member of MechTech Stompy Bot, that our roots are from the community, and that we are making a game because we want to make a game, and we wouldn't have a game if it wasn't for the people behind it, the people who support it, and the people who play it. And so definitely the community has a role to play in the development, in the course of the development of this product and other products that we're going to be putting together if everything falls into place. And so what Vince was saying about OnNet is how we're going to achieve, how we're going to be able to listen to the community and still have time to actually do something about what the community is saying. And OnNet allows us to get feedback currently from our alpha players, And concretely, we were able to address those issues immediately. And those in the alpha know what we're talking about right now. And we've gone through a couple of patches already through the alpha, and some of those comments have been addressed and fixed. And we want to continue likewise throughout the development, the life cycle of this product, and until we launch, and years down the road if the community continues to support it. And so it's a key point of our development pipeline, if you will, is our community, and we're definitely making the game for all you guys.
All right. One thing Vince addressed, though, was the form warrior, the theory crafting form warrior, and how you don't want to necessarily, let them rule. One thing we've noticed as a problem in a lot of games is the vocal minority. How do you intend to, that hardcore, deep set in people that post and post and post, and they only want to hear what they want to hear? How do you intend to combat that?
Well, I'm a proponent of you have the right to free speech, and if that's what you want to push out there, I would encourage that the silent majority express themselves, and that is part of being a community. We're very community driven, and we encourage every member to speak, and so the more voices, the better. And that's one of the strategies we want to encourage, is to have a friendly environment where all can express their views.
Good answer.
Yeah, I like that answer. Thank you. All right, well, let's move on. We have a question from Kakos here. Pretty easy one. When will you allow alpha testers in again?
We're currently looking at letting alpha testers in when we finish the development of the next module. So when we finish the development of the next module, because our development cycle is very module based, and I know you guys have had some podcasts inviting the Star Citizen developers on to speak about their products, so I'm sure you guys know about the Star Citizen development scheme. It's very similar. We've adopted the module development concept pretty hardcore with Heavy Gear Assault. We like it. It works really well for the type of product that we're building. So it enables us to be able to have our modules pass through semi-different development cycles, if you will. And we're looking at letting another wave in. I can't give you guys an exact date, but we are definitely looking at letting another wave in before we go to beta, because of course when we go to beta, things will obviously change, and so with beta we'll have all of the major modules developed that we would consider to be a part of what we're calling Heavy Gear 1.0. And when we get to 1.0, there's going to be a completely new wave of people invited in to play the game.
All right. My question about that being, what is the next module you guys planned? If you can talk about it.
Okay, sure. I can talk a little bit about the next module. So the next module that we're developing is the weapons equipment and gear bay module, and so this module focuses on the player's ability to customize their gears. You can enter the gear bay where you have complete control over the gear. You can swap out weapons, equipment. You can tinker with systems. You can modify the gear's performance. You can introduce new modules which may give you more horsepower, energy. It's a whole new layer of simulation in Heavy Gear Assault to what exists right now. Because what exists right now is sort of that classic, drop and shoot type of game. But this actually adds that next layer on top of that, which is vital for our product. It also includes the sensors, systems, the energy weapons, It allows you to be able to install and upgrade actuators, pumps, valves, batteries, servos. You can tune the balance of the gear, like I was saying, and it also focuses on the customization of your gear, and this is where we were introduced the ability for players to be able to not only just select what gear you're playing with, but also allow you to select what weapons, for instance, are available for those particular loadouts for those gears. We're also looking at all of the different systems that will be introduced, and you'll be able to tweak those as well. We're also going to be bringing into this new module some more advanced movement systems. So the ability for the gears, like I was saying earlier, is really hitting at the fact that these things are more infantry than mech, if you will. They have the ability to be able to sprint, climb, jump, crouch, crawl, and other advanced movements without the need of even adding any extra equipment to the gear to pull off some of those moves.
So, confirmed prone?
Absolutely, you'll be able to crouch. We're also looking at, this is sort of the end of the module, and we may decide whether we'll keep it in this one or move it to the next one, but also more extreme movements as well. So, of course, these things have skates, and we've been flirting with the idea of having them have the ability to actually use those skates to, for instance, grind down a staircase or grind down a pipe or whatever. But those technical achievements, is sort of last on the list before we get through the rest of the module. So that's the module, and it really adds that next layer of customization and fine tuning and tweaking that is really going to be fun to play with. This is the Forza experience of Heavy Gear Assault that nobody's even experienced yet.
Well, speaking for myself, I have enjoyed my time with robots on roller skates, and I can't wait to see this next module you guys have planned.
Appreciate it.
We got another question from Kakos. Are there expectations about the minimum specs to run the game, and are you willing to sacrifice stuff? For example, visual effects, lower res textures, smaller maps, less players per game, to make it run on less powerful computers?
Well, actually, to answer this, one of the next, I'm not going to guarantee it's going to be the next producer update, but it's definitely going to be coming very soon. But essentially, our UI designer and developers have been working feverishly to give our alpha players access to a UI system that allow them to really, really, really tweak out what visuals and what systems are running that may not necessarily be needed if your system's a bit old. Unreal Engine 4 is, of course, a DirectX 11 engine, so at this point, running it on a Windows-based system is, you have to have DirectX 11 capable hardware. If you don't, then you're kind of SOL. But we are going to be providing the ability for players to be able to really tweak down the graphics. So sort of those last gen systems should be able to handle running it. Like we test on some pretty low end systems here. We have a Q6600 with a fairly modern DirectX 11 video card in it with 4 gigs of RAM that runs the game fine. We've got a couple of AMD systems as well, running last gen ATI hardware that seems to be, they seem to be capable of handling it, like the 6870 cards. I think we've got a couple there that have the 5870 cards, and they're able to handle it. But if you're going down around the GTX for let's see, NVIDIA's GT 460 seems to be like the lowest end NVIDIA card that I've heard is able to actually run UE4 with any sort of frames per second. But our recommendation is somewhere around the 580 and up. That's all of our developers are running NVIDIA cards for the most part, and they have no problems with the 500 series and up. So I think it's actually pretty reasonable for most gamers. If you've played a game of any sort of resource hungry game in the last, I don't know, 5 years, you should be able to run this game.
Yeah, Unreal's always been pretty good at scaling anyway.
Yeah, it really has been. It's always been almost like an OS on that puts itself over your own OS. Safe mode and all that.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier. Like these game engines are very, very, very strong technical achievements. Like they're engineering masterpieces, and one of the reasons why we wanted to use Unreal Engine in the first place was because of that fact. Like it scales well. It runs on pretty much everything. We're using UE4, so it's this generation, but that's fine. For us, we know Windows XP is finally going away. So those old diehards are finally having to upgrade their PCs. All the new consoles that are out there are able to run this engine without any problems. Hell, it's even able to run on the Shield. So, I think Unreal Engine is a great piece of technology to use to build this title.
Well, it's good to know you guys have older machines around too to test the build on, rather than just one high-end Intel machine that everybody seems to use.
Well, we definitely have the most of our dev team uses the i7, current gen or last gen i7 with at least 8 gigs of RAM, and an SSD drive. And I actually find the SSD drive is actually the bottleneck in this. Most of the older systems that we've put SSDs in have had no problems running the game and loading the maps and stuff, because that's where all the load time is. As long as you have a decent amount of RAM in the machine, having an SSD with the game on the SSD, just with that Q6600, for instance, we're seeing like it's got to be a 100% improvement in terms of the amount of time it takes for it to load the game.
All right. Well, we have one more question from our own Rather Dashing. He had to skate off, so I'm going to ask it for him. The gameplay has the potential to be very fast. Are you considering tribes movement as a guideline? That said, will you do anything to increase the game speed, like skating over hills to gain momentum, or are you going to put hard speed caps on certain gears to keep the game speed limited, so players will have to expand and build on the uniqueness of different mech chassis for game diversity? Also, will the game itself be faster or more twitch-based? It has the great potential to be more akin to an arena shooter than a mech sim like MechWarrior, for example.
This is a great one. So I guess I'll start off with mentioning that our character artist lead, Brian Brown, is a huge Tribes fan and a massive Tribes fan. And he is always pushing for us to make it fast. And myself and James, we were huge fans of the older mech games that were fast. So we don't want to build a walking tanks game like that. This is one of the things that's important for us, is we want to make it fast, but we don't want to make it Mech Assault 2 annoying.
So are you saying this is not our dad's heavy gear?
Heavy Gear 2 was a fast game. It was definitely much faster than MechWarrior 4, for instance. Its pace was faster, and we are definitely keeping, in terms of the in terms of the pace. But one of the things that we're doing differently is because of the esports mechanism, we always want to be pushing the player. We always want the game types to be, the ladder to be ticking. We want the game types to be, timed perfectly in the level. So we're always pushing the player to want to complete that objective as quickly as possible to have them move on to that next rank. And so by proxy, having the gameplay also, pushing as well as having the mechanism for the player to play at that kind of pace, makes it a very fast experience. And I make the comparison to Unreal Tournament. Unreal Tournament is a very fast game. It's of course more to the Twitch than the sim, but as I pointed out, there are sim elements at play here. And you need to always keep in mind that those sim elements are at play. There's nothing wrong with going somewhere in the level, and potentially doing something that's more sim oriented if it's going to give you an advantage in winning the match. And I think that's really important to point out. And we've had a few people discuss torso twisting, and torso twisting kind of slows the pace down a little bit. We've had a few alpha members suggest that we should consider actually disabling torso twisting entirely, because we are at this pace, and we've had a few say that it's too fast. And with torso twisting, it's too confusing to figure out where your orientation is if you're going to have it playing at this speed. And I'm actually I find it kind of interesting that we've had somebody suggest this, because our team internally, has actually discussed this a few times before we had any alpha players play, and we actually decided long ago, if this ever became an issue, it was playing too fast, people were becoming disoriented, that we'd actually allow them to be able to go into their customization and lock their axes so they can't torso twist, and see how that plays out for them, because they're going to quickly find out why mech games have torso twisting, and a master of somebody torso twisting playing a fast-paced mech game like this is going to kick your ass every single time. So, we're looking forward.
That's a good solution to it. Just giving the player the choice rather than just taking it away.
And if it turns out we have teams of people that want to do this, and they go off and they play on a private server or whatever, we're more than happy to facilitate that. If it turns out that they want to play it that way, and they like playing it that way, and that would be more akin to tribes, right? I mean, that would definitely give more similar feeling to a tribes type game when you start removing a few of those mech based elements, and we can easily do that, and you can justify it even in the lore. You can say that, well, we never talked about this, but all gears have this intelligence sensor built into them, the CPU, and essentially that is the dog-like intelligence that gears have. So justifiably so, we can say, okay, lock it, and we can just say that the AI is locking the torso twisting for these pilots for whatever reason, whether they're in training or whether
Sorry,
they
they're
don't
too
use
stupid.
Whatever.
What about the hard speed caps part of the question?
Hard speed cap. So I guess for me, one of the things that we don't want to do is we don't want to govern, and I use that word in a more of an explicit sense, because if you guys know what a governor is, with if you go buy a cheap domestic vehicle, the trainees always have a governor built into them to prevent them from going over 160 miles per hour or something like that. I don't know what the number is exactly, but once you hit that, you hit the governor, and then your engine sort of taps out, right? You can't get it past that without actually physically removing the governor sometimes. In my sense, these gears are for all intents and purposes, they're the luxury of the Heavy Gear universe. If you own one and you want to push it to the max, and you want to go as fast as it can possibly go, we do not want to prevent that. We don't want to prevent players from, not experiencing the kind of pace, because ultimately the rules in the Heavy Gear universe, they already have the maximum speed thresholds that the gears are set at. And we're sticking to the lore as closely as possible with this. So, those speeds are sort of already been set. But for me, like, if you're able to find a jump pad or a portal or something that actually allows you to be able to increase your speed in the level, if there's some mechanism at play there, that has the gears flying at 200 or 300 Gs, then, go for it.
All right.
Like
At your own peril, then.
Like, for instance, a rocket sled for rocket jousting. But
All
just to complete a little bit what Vince is saying about the pace of the game, in the lore, gears are meant to be fast-moving and hard-hitting, and so we try to emulate that in this in Heavy Gear Assault. Gears in the lore, they hit hard, but they also die fast because they're lightly armored and just the way they're made up. There are certain points of vulnerability on a gear, but at the same time they move fast and they're maneuverable, and that's how they compensate for that vulnerability, is their speed and maneuverability. So we want to emulate that. We want to be able to have these gears move quickly, get out of the way, and also hit back hard and fast. And that's going to lead to that excitement of you not knowing what's going to happen next, because the next hit may actually end you.
Absolutely. And to balance that, we are looking at game types which will be used to introduce the Striders. And so by bringing in the Striders, which are these slow-walking turrets, we bring these things in, and basically a Strider could take on, John can correct me on this, but a Strider could feasibly take on 6 to 8 hunters or Jaegers, the smallest gear in the universe, without even any question. They will slow the pace down, right? But when you have 8 or 12 other players that are playing, and they're in some small fight scene, and we're actually able to provide the ability for a large walking tank to walk in, there's your massive mech in the middle of this, but all these smaller infantry style mechs, the gears, they can be destroyed pretty quickly by a big Strider, for instance, the boss mech, if you will, in Heavy Gear. And I look forward to seeing how that dynamic sort of plays out with our alpha team and our beta team as we introduce some of those dynamics, because I think it's going to be very entertaining, and I can't wait to see how players actually react to that.
How would this Strider actually be implemented? Is it going to be AI, or is a player going to take it, or how do you intend to deploy it?
Well, you see in the lore, the world of Heavy Gear is centered around the gears, but at the same time, there's a bunch of other combat vehicles that exist in lore. Striders are one of them, being maybe the equivalent of a 20-ton non-humanoid, so chicken legs sometimes. They vary wildly in design and composition, but they're more reminiscent of your traditional mechs. Typically, they carry the firepower to also call themselves light battle mechs, really, and they're basically walking tanks. So the downside to that is, yes, they're carrying more armor and firepower, but they're less mobile as well, and maybe not be with the ability to take out 6 to 8 gears, but maybe a squad of 5 maybe would be an even matchup. But yeah, we haven't really decided if we wanted to be AI or piloted, but eventually we down the road, and we're talking years down the road, and we've imagined and talked about maybe allowing players to drive it, but that's really a maybe at this point. And there's also tanks in the universe, so there might be that as well. And yeah, the possibilities are endless because the lore is so big.
All right, we had a question of Jude about this. Go ahead, Jude.
Actually, I have two now. I guess first I'll go off that. In the MechWarrior games, usually in the single-player campaigns, you'd start with a lighter mech, and the whole game would just be kind of an arms race to get bigger mechs, fill them with more weapons, and shoot more guns. And the lighter mechs, they'd be a lot faster, but it's usually not fast enough to offset the fact that you die in one hit. So how would you balance the smaller and larger gears if the larger gears just have more firepower?
So typically in the lore, the smaller mechs or gears carry electronic packages that scrambles targeting information. They're typically scout gears, and they also have better maneuverability as it all and speed. And so not being able to see or target them would be a huge impediment, and would also lead to them surviving a lot longer versus more firepower. And like I said earlier, with Striders, Heavy Gears is based a lot on combined arms. So team play and roles of your mechs or gears will have a definite advantage. The players who are able to mix and match and balance their strengths and weaknesses will come out better than players who just go all heavy.
Is electronic warfare exclusive to the smaller gears then, or do large gears also have that stuff?
Larger gears will also have it, but not to the extent of dedicated recon gears.
Alrighty then.
We had Molasses had a question.
Yeah, I was just thinking on the idea of whether or not the strides would be player runnable. I think it'd be an interesting idea if you had it to where the strider works similar to maybe I guess in Dota, sometimes runes will pop up, and it's whoever can get to them first. And I think that might be an interesting idea for how the strider works. It's just open it or maybe a double damage in Unreal Tournament. There's a set amount of time that has to go. Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. So I'm a huge fan of Dota as well, and Team Fortress 2, and that's one of the things that we're looking at in terms of game types is you have this arena type setting, where the strider's in the middle somewheres in the arena, and you got to get to it, and whoever gets to it first, of course, you can eject from your gear. You are the pilot in the game, and you could climb up and get into the strider, and then you have some master objective that needs to be met with that particular strider in order for your team to win that game type. And we've been tinkering with a lot of different ideas like that. The current strider we have on the little video that's playing on the MechTech homepage is fully pilotable. That particular strider is actually the Sagittarius, and that's capable of having a gunner on the top as well as a pilot that's down, that's actually piloting the strider going forward and backward momentum.
Did I hear co-op mechs?
Well,
that's another thing that I'd like to jump in and cut in here, is that Striders in the Heavy Gear universe are typically multi-crewed, much like a helicopter gunship. So typically they'd be like a pilot and a gunner, and the gunner would... Yes. One thing comes to mind in particular is the Southern Naga. It's a chicken-legged walker that can turn into a light tank. And the rear pilot is actually a radar operator and missile officer. So it's a missile gunship. And the pilot in the front has control of the chin-mounted chain gun and pilots the mech. So they operate very much like an Apache gunship. So it's another thing we're tinkering, that maybe allowing players to co-op on a mech and work together.
I think that feature that a lot of people would like.
Meanwhile, at the same time, you're going to have, to deal with all of the gears on the other team, which are going to be a real pain in the ass to complete that objective. Yeah, it is a game type. It's in our game design Bible to sort of work this out over the next couple of months in terms of how the Striders will behave and interact. But we will definitely have at least a few by closed beta for players to play with.
Jude had one quick question.
So this might be a little premature to ask, considering the game is only in early alpha, but Vince and John could actually give separate answers if they have separate answers, but in fact, I have an answer myself. But if you had to pick a single feature, mechanic, or just overall part of the game, which are you most proud of?
That's a hard one because as a producer, of course, proud of all parts of the game. We have a really dedicated team that, have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into what we have right now. And, each particular part of the game, makes me proud for certain moments as a producer of it. As a player of it, the thing that always brings a smile to my face is, of course, the current pace in which the alpha plays, and that pace is something that quite arguably is what the very first thing that we put down on paper when we wrote the game design, 2.5 years ago for this product was it has to play fast. We want that esports fast-paced experience. We want people to, not have to travel 3 or 4 kilometers, through open terrain, through a desert or whatever to get to the base to have a 15-minute match and maybe shoot a few, satellites down or something in the middle. We really wanted to have the ability for players to be able to drop and literally start tearing each other to pieces instantly. And for me, being able to hit that is what we call the major part of our vertical slice. And, we achieved it. And I'm very proud of breaking down, of course, the rest of the technical challenge ceilings that we had to break down to be able to put that in the hands of people to play it. Well, that's my answer, Jude. John, feel free.
Oh, my answer is maybe a little bit less technical and a little bit more to do with the people behind it. I feel blessed and I feel fortunate to have a great team that's humble, that's talented, and that's ready to listen to our great community. And we are also very fortunate and blessed to have a wonderful community that got behind us, that started the founding, gave us that push to initially start development, and that has stayed with us even when we went dark to go do our R&D. And they're still here. They're a great crowd, and we're very grateful to have them. And we're very grateful to have all the people that's surrounding this great product. And there's a lot of promise that come from this.
All right, nice. So I said I also had my own answer, sort of. On behalf of Kong, I think we need to be proud of the working lobby system, because from what I heard, we actually had a big hand in getting you guys to work on it early.
Absolutely. I mean, we had... well, again, I mean, to point out my roots here, playing the games in the 90s, early 90s, I mean, let's go back to 94, okay? There were lobbies. You could get on Kane and Kaylee, okay? Those things existed, but the games themselves had lobbies. The original MechWarrior game had a lobby. The original Heavy Gear game had a lobby. You had the ability to be able to meet with people and play the game,
Such a novel concept, right?
It's such a novel concept to have a lobby where people can get together and actually play the game together without having to jump to a website or another chat program or whatever. It just seemed really ridiculous to us that there wasn't a lobby in some of the newer titles, and it even seemed to be pitched by a few of the developers in our genre as being a feature. It's a feature not to have a lobby, and that just left me dumbfounded, because IB games should have a lobby. I mean,
every multiplayer game for sure. I mean, it's the basics of multiplaying online with people across the internet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and we're quite proud of the lobby system that we have. It's not the technical marvel that I would be proud of. It's just something you have to have.
Well, we here at Kong are very passionate about lobbies, and we thank you for implementing it early.
And it will continue to get better and better as we work in the profile system. We continue to work in some of the the death kill stuff. Some of the recognition of the players that are really kicking ass. So that gets worked into the lobby. I think people are going to really enjoy just sitting there and on a day-to-day basis, just calling each other out, and kicking ass.
Death kill stuff, I had no idea.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank Vince and John for joining us here today at Kast. We're very excited about your game, and we can't wait to see what you have. Is there anything you wanted to tell your audience and anything else before we go?
Well, I'd like to thank our audience for listening in today. If you have any questions, feel free to post them up on our forums.heavygear.com or our Facebook page, and we would be happy to answer any questions anybody might have. I'd also like to thank Kong for having us today. You guys are a great crew, and you do a great job. We hope to come back very soon and do another one of these. Guys, you do a great job.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have you on sooner than later. Anything from you, John?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you for having us on behalf of MechTech and StompyBot and all of our crew. We thank Kong for having us and giving us such a warm reception, and we look forward to coming back on your show again. It's been great.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to Kongcast, and have a good evening.
Thanks for listening to Kongcast.